You're listening to the Baha'i World News Service.
Now live at local house of worship.
Naglilingkod kay Bahá'í. In this episode, Farrukh Rasulov, a member of the Bahá'í Office of Public Affairs of Uzbekistan, explores the Bahá'í community's rich history in that country. He discusses contributions of the Bahá'ís of Uzbekistan to societal progress through moral and spiritual education, and the application of principles such as the oneness of humanity and the equality of women and men. From the Baha'i World News Service, this is Insights from the Field, a podcast series that explores experiences from Baha'i efforts to contribute to social progress, from the grassroots to the international level. Farrukh begins by describing the contribution of the Baha'is in Uzbekistan to the betterment of their society that goes back to the 19th century, when at that time it was part of the larger area known as Turkestan.
If we look back to the 19th century, where the Bahá'í Faith was born in the Persia, first Bahá'í community outside the Persia was emerged in Ashgabat. And during that time, under the leadership of Abdu'l-Bahá, there were established the first Bahá'í House of Worship in Ashgabat. So the principle of the House of Worship was how we can integrate worship with the service. And that time, the community of the Ashgabat, Turkestan, tries to connect the worship with the service, and also built auxiliary buildings around the temple, like schools. First, the schools was for boys and then for girls, because one of the principles of Bahá'í Faith is the equality men and women. We cannot achieve the unity of the society, unity of the humanity, when the half of population cannot be educated. So this was one of the principles to give the education for the girls. And the new communities emerged in the big cities like Tashkent and Bukhara, Samarkand. And during that time, in the Tashkent was opened the first reading rooms, library, and the publishing house, Wahdat. And there was some of the books was translated to local language. And then the Soviet Union begins to repress the community. It's 1930, 1935. Many activities was stopped, and some of the Baha'is were exiled or sentenced to death. Any religious activity was banned. And in 1991, during independence of Uzbekistan, the communities which were keeping silence, they tried to re-emerge and officially registered in the government level. So the history of the faith and the history of Turkestan has deep roots. So the Baha'i community is connected with the culture of Central Asia, and it's very close to our nation, our Uzbek nation. And this is one of the beautiful elements of our culture. And also the principle of unity of humanity, unity in diversity, not only theoretically, but also how it's expressed in practice in the community life. How community gathered with the like-minded people in the local level, they reflect all these spiritual virtues, spiritual principles, how it can be implemented or reborn again that we have before in past, like a culture of hospitality, culture of hashar, we call like social action in the local level. Now with the modernization, with the urbanization, we're losing these elements of culture, and now we should reflect with the neighbors.
Throughout the country, people engaged in Baha'i moral and spiritual programs explore their spiritual identity and develop capabilities that enable them to contribute to the betterment of society. Farrukh brings up an example of the effect of these programs in the mahallas, a traditional neighborhood structure in Uzbekistan that helps organize community life.
In the local level, through the Baha'i moral spiritual education, we try to understand with the local people what is our nature, what is our identity, the truth identity. So we talk, of course, about our souls. The man was born as a noble being, and how this nobility can be nurtured through this education, and also how it can help to contribute to service to their mahalla, to their localities. And what we see that the children, for example, in one of the neighborhood, the children also backbiting and offended each other. But after several 2 years after studying these programs, now they have no kind of identity which divided themselves. You are, for example, Uzbek and you are Russian. Sometimes the language problem also make division between boys and girls or between the children because they cannot understand each other. But these programs helps to understand that they have common identity.
He also discusses family festivals happening in various neighborhoods.
During the spiritual education of children, they have festivals where the children what studied in the programs about the spiritual qualities like love, trust, honesty, and after a quarter, 3 months, they try to show this through the drama, for example, yes, to show how to be honest, how to care, how to interact with other children. So this festival helps to parents understand the program and also try to help parents to understand what principle they are studying. And also parents study these principles and try also help their children and support them to practice the spiritual quality. And also, of course, they should be also model for their children. They also try to be more spiritual, more objective, more just. In one neighborhood, we call it a group of families, so that not only the children or teenagers participate in these programs, but also parents. The family, mothers try to gather together and talk about the neighborhood, talk about the children, and think what we can do, what's happening. And also, we're still thinking about the role of man in the family, the role of father, and we try to involve the man also not only in the issue of logistics or operational things, but also how he can join to this conversation about the education of their children, not only finance help, but also to be a role model for his boy or for the daughter. What kind of man we want, for example, yeah? What kind of interaction between a man and woman, how they articulate the love to each other. So there are many traditional maybe elements that divide the obligation of men and women, and that's why if we want a unity in the family, we need a new role of man and woman, the new role of the family, and how it also the family can be united, can also there is a cohesion, there is also a support, like kind of dialogue and between men and women.
As more people in a locality engage with Baha'i community building initiatives, they gradually begin to question long-held harmful cultural habits. Farrukh brings up one such example where the culture of backbiting gave way to one of consulting.
In culture, there is a meeting we call gap in Uzbek. Gap, it means then men or women sit together and talk about social problems, and always usually they talk about the person. And instead of this backbiting, there was another content of topic about for example, of well-being of our mahalla, of our locality, what we can do together. For example, we see the children and they are smoking cigarettes, sometimes they using the drugs, sometimes the alcohol, many social problems. And when some friends in the local level try to invite the parents to investigate what's the social problem we have and what we can do together in order to solve and help our children and youth. And from that time, after 3 years, we see that they are not backbiting now. They are thinking more about the intellectual education of their children and the youth, and also the spiritual education that we have today.
These conversations at the local level also inform the broader discourse at the national level. Farrukh touches on the question of radicalization and how the principle of harmony between science and religion can provide the necessary insights and motivations for transformative action.
Under the Baha'i community of Uzbekistan, we have an Office of External Affairs, and we talk with a pool of journalists, media specialists, experts, sometimes the government, deputies, and also the teachers, how to draw on experience that we have in the local level, how we can rethink the concept of knowledge, concept of education, what kind of education we want in order to prevent, for example, radicalization. Because recently in September, there was a Central Asian meeting where they talk about radicalization, because our country is in a very risky place, whereas radical thinking, especially online, are coming to in our country, in our Central Asian countries, and these countries come together in order to reflect how we can prevent this, what kind of instruments we should use, what kind of method what we have today, and the experience of the other countries. So when I talked with the expert who was there, he shared that the government cannot now solve this alone. So we need to join together with the civil society and with the NGO. So it should become some kind of coherence between the institution, public institutions, with the civil society, and also expert pool and individuals. So they suggested to join the force, to join together the force, and to prevent this radicalization. And also he asked what the perspective of Baha'i community according to this radical problem. And we talk about education, we talk about how this universal education, which is draw on the science and the religion, because the Bahá'í Faith, one of the principles is the harmony between science and the religion. And we understood that the religion tries to touch your heart, touch your soul, in order to do a good deeds for your society, how your inspiration, how your higher nature can be emerged, can be awakened. And science helps to have a rational thought, because we see now, through the media, we see how many youth can be manipulated or somehow make also radicalization among the young people. So we need both this system of knowledge, like science and religion, and how to integrate these two of the system in together in order to solve this radical thinking, blind limitation.
Next, Farrukh shares how the Baha'i community contributes to the discourse around national identity by exploring the spiritual nature of women and men.
There are 16 religions, there are 130 ethnic groups in Uzbekistan. So government is seeking what kind of concept of our national identity can be in order to unite this all of diverse community in Uzbekistan. And now they're trying to implement this idea of intellectual development, social development, and spiritual development. And in this case, I see the principle of the dual nature of human being, that we have not only the intellectual, the body, but we also are spiritual beings, that we have a soul, which can also can be developed, and through this we can identify that we have twofold moral purpose, that I'm soul, I can develop, and an intellectual, both spiritual, and can contribute and service to my country in order to achieve progress, that we are all souls. Our highest nature is to develop our inner potential. So inner potential, what does it mean? We mean that we developed our intellectual skills, intellectual potential, and also spiritual potential. It means we can be honest, we can love each other, we can show trust, trustworthiness. In this context, the equality men and women is closely connected with the identity. The equality men and women means that boys and girls have this potential, inner potential, intellectual and spiritual potential, and what kind of conditions we can create as a parents, as a teachers, at the government level, what kind of education can be that girl and boy can implement their talents, implement their spiritual qualities and intellectual qualities, implement in their society, how they can be useful for their society. And if the mother is educated, the nation is educated. Whole nation is educated. Because the mother is the first who gives the knowledge for their child. So this concept of equality men and women is more deeper than just arguing about who should do this, who should do that, whose function of man, what is the function of woman, and so on. So if we agree and accept the unity of humankind, there were no any rooms for prejudices. And if we accept the equality of men and women, there was no prejudices against the woman. It also helps to eradicate the prejudices, stereotypes what we have today. For example, sometimes there is a false national identity which has principles like competition, or I'm the better, you are the worst, we are the first and you are the last, and so on. This kind of also national identity can be manipulated with some forces and can be also bring the radicalization in the societies. That's why the national identity should be always connected with some identity that's connected all people, all humanity in one. We are all united. We are all one human family. It's expanded the national identity we have. So one of the contributions of the Bahá'í Faith in the progress of society and development of society and to achieve the unity, real unity and cohesion in society through the educational programs that we try to implement in the local, in the national level. These programs tries to eliminate prejudices. These kind of prejudices are eliminating little by little, and in the future there will be more dialogue between diverse communities in the context we are one, what we can do together in order to achieve well-being of our society. Because we see not only within the country, there's a global level, we have many destructive forces are emerging, are increasing, even though we have another skin, another language, another cultural background, religious background. We just keep away these things and think about what we can do together in order to save our generation and next generation. And what kind of knowledge will guarantee that our children will not be manipulated, for example, will not go to and start a war somewhere. So these principles tries to respond to the concern of the society for today, in any community, in every country, and in the global level. Our nation has a rich culture, and I believe as a community, as a Bahá'í community, we believe that our country, our nation, our society will still continue progress and advance further in all of the spheres, in the science, in the education, intellectual and spiritual. And I believe that these learnings that we have today will be shared and also will open a dialogue and to disseminate learnings to other nations and still keep going, advancing.
You've been listening to Insights from the Field, a podcast series from the Baha'i World News Service. For more podcasts and stories, visit news.baha'i.org.